Hi friends and welcome to this video. I realise I've not done one of these videos around bilingual living for a very long time, and today I'm going to be talking about how to teach your toddler to speak 2 languages. So we are a family in the UK. I am personally Russian. I was born in Russia. I moved out of Russia when I was 1 year old. I lived in Israel for about 6-7 years, and then I came to East London. So I have a 3-year-old and I have been teaching my toddler since he was day 1 Russian and English. And basically my partner is fully British and English, and that's his language. He knows a little bit of Russian, especially because we've been together for like 16 years. So he knows how to speak, he understands a lot. I definitely can't talk behind his back anymore. In this video, I'm going to be sharing all the things that I've done, and I think it's working really well personally. Pat on the back. And I also will share with you my own experiences of things that I can do better. But before any of that, just quickly, if you like this video, please do give me a thumbs up. I do these in my spare time and work full time as well, so life gets busy. And basically, if you want to see more bilingual living, mum hacks, clean with me's, then make sure to subscribe to the channel. Thanks so much, and let's get straight into it. First things first, I wanted to talk about the myths of bilingual teaching, basically teaching your kids more than one language, that it confuses them. And I do not think that that is the case. I also have read research that suggests otherwise, that actually are so many benefits to bilingual teachings, including like slowing down Alzheimer's, you know, dementia and things like that. It improves your ability to multitask because you're using so many parts of your brain to translate constantly. So I personally have lived my life as a bilingual person. I have an older sister, I have a half sister, I also have 2 nieces, and I have my own child to go by to basically tell you guys that it does not slow down speech, it does not cause issues. So what I will say is that if the child has issues in language anyway, so for example, one of my nieces has trouble even in English, so she's got a lisp, and it just means that every language that she speaks, she has trouble basically pronouncing things, but that is not sourced from speaking more than one language. So basically what I'm going to say here is I definitely recommend you teaching another language, and the way that I have done it, there are a few ways that you can teach your child to do it. So I personally grew up in a family that spoke only Russian. So the reason why I don't remember Hebrew, whereas actually I probably should know Hebrew more because I grew up with it, because I was 1 when I left Russia. So the fact that I know Russian is crazy, right? But I don't know Hebrew because I forgot it since I left Israel, is because my whole family spoke Russian. So this including my mum, my dad, my grandmother, and me and my sister were basically told to speak the language in the house, to read in that language as much as possible. And obviously we've done our GCSEs and A-levels in that, so we were very much encouraged by the whole family to speak that language because they spoke it. And let's face it, they weren't very good at English or any other language, and that's why they stayed with Russian, which is absolutely fine because that meant that I have that language. So that is one of the ways to do it, where your whole family speaks it at home. So that does not work for me and my husband because my husband doesn't know Russian fluently. Let alone I had trouble remembering some words. So I often spoke to Alexa, asking her basically, how do you say X in Russian? And she would tell me, and then I'm like, oh yes, I remember that word, you know. So I am like a 2nd generation in a way of that language anyway. So when it comes even to my child, who is less likely to learn from somebody who doesn't know the language just as well as somebody who's native, basically it doesn't work. So the way that I've approached it is I only speak to my child. So one parent speaks to that child in that particular language. So it doesn't have to be a parent. So I have a best friend whose grandparents only speak to the child in Russian. So there are some strict rules that I adhere to. So I make sure that I only speak in Russian as much as I can. Even been trying to do so outside, even though it's been quite difficult in this current global climate, if you know what I mean. And basically I'm making sure that I speak to my son as much as possible in Russian, whether we play, whether I'm asking him questions, whether I am telling him off. So that has really worked for us. And where we are at now is where he predominantly speaks in English. So he goes to an English preschool. He spends a lot of time with his nanny and granddad, who are very much British as well. So my in-laws, we amongst ourselves, me and Christopher, so my husband, speak in English. And obviously English is so predominant in the UK and Essex. So of course he's going to be preferring English. Hell, I prefer English too, right? So basically that is our language. However, he very much knows Russian as well. There are some words that he would particularly like to speak in Russian, in the sense that he would prefer to use that word over English. So one of the examples would be kamin, which means stone. So when we're out and about, he likes to pick up stones, and because a lot of that time is done with me, I'm taking him out, we're playing in the park, we're doing activities, he's associated that word with Russian and says it. The same thing with like bath time, my hair. He absolutely loves my hair, so he would always say "Mamin volos," so volos rather than hair. So there are some words that are very much Russian ingrained in his brain, even though he understands the translation. So me and my husband play a little game sometimes, and we're like, oh, mummy said this, what's that in English? And then he would translate it, and it, like, mind blown. We absolutely love that. That was a lot of me explaining my situation currently, how I got here 3 years on, and the way that I managed to get my son to understand the language, to speak the language, even if it's not fluently like it is English. Don't worry guys, we are planning to start Russian school from September as well, now that he's 3. So I'm hoping that improves even more, because it's not just me speaking that language, but it's also academic, which will be great. So the way I do it, first things first, is repetition. So I repeat it in Russian as much as possible. I always continue to say, I'm like, coming, oh yeah, coming. So basically when he says something, and I then make sure that I repeat that same word over and over again. And it's always playing in the same way, like making sure that you're using those plain words. It's always like if you're having food, making sure that you're repeating those words. So you're eating X, Y, and Z. So let's say he's eating rice, he's eating carrots, he's eating cucumber. And it's constantly saying that, oh, you're eating cucumber. Do you like that cucumber? Is it a nice cucumber? And it does seem over the top, and it is a lot of energy. But it's so worth it for your child, especially because of those benefits that I said at the beginning, but also because it's a part of me, in the sense that I believe like that's my roots, that's where I'm from, that's what my family is, and I believe that I can pass that on to him. So repetition is the first thing. Similarly, I would say that actually translating on the go is just as effective. So for example, let's say we're playing a game and he is speaking to me in English, saying something particular. I would then translate straight away on the go and be like, oh, you're doing X, Y, and Z in that particular language. So I'm making sure that I'm repeating that and translating it on the go to make sure that he knows the Russian equivalent of what he just said in English. The other thing is narration. So I narrate to like about my life, what I'm doing. Oh, mummy is doing this. Especially I found it very interesting because Russian has like the similar sort of thing in the language with feminine and masculine, and then like the grouping as well, like it does in French. So I would then find that because I'm a woman, I would say it in a particular way. So narrating about me, I would say mummy is doing this in a particular way, and then I'd repeat it and be like, oh, Aiden, so my son, Aiden is now doing this. So it's also in a different way, different, like, you're using different vocabulary for that, different endings, especially in Russian. So I find that the narration is very, very handy. Playing through words is fantastic because that is the way they learn. So mentioning that whole story about the stones at the beginning, that's playing through words. We are playing with these stones, and therefore I'm repeating that word. I'm translating that. It's not a stone, it's actually kamin. And therefore he remembers that through play, that actually this word is kamin. And therefore he would say it over and over again. So if he is to play that particular game again, or let's say we're role-playing, playing a particular scenario, so let's say it's the doctors or the dentist, then he'll remember those words because we've been playing through it, and it's one of the fundamental ways to teach any language. My friend actually told me that her toddler very much likes to read about something first and then experience it. So whether it's potty training or whether it's the dentist, it has to be through like the books and like reading the books, understanding the scenario. So if you do it in a particular language, they will then remember that language as well. So they will associate those things that you do, a little bit like playing through words. You're also actually experiencing those things via these books. You're reading these books and you're saying it in a particular way, so they will remember it, whether it's like rhymes, it's songs. Russian in particular is a very difficult language, and therefore I break down the words for him, especially because there's some things that are so quick in Russian, like cat and dog, and like such short words, so easy to remember. It sticks in your head so much quicker. And when it comes to like the Russian equivalent, it's a lot longer. So koshka, so that's like 2 syllables rather than 1, you know, like, but there's some words that are ridiculous. I wish I can remember it. It's like one quick burst in English, and then it's like 5 or something syllables in Russian. But basically I break it down as much as possible to try and explain to him how to say something. So I don't remember whether it was like a cat or something that we were talking about earlier this morning, but I think I was saying koshka. So I'm breaking it down into something that he can actually repeat and then put it together and then therefore speak the language. So this one is a little bit more tricky, and something that I found that the older he gets, the more I get to use, and that is basically asking him to repeat something but in a particular language. So at first I have found that he didn't quite understand that when I say Russian, what that even means. He's like, huh? Just ignores it, and like, he doesn't understand that there's English and then there's Russian, but he does understand that obviously daddy speaks one language and mummy speaks another language because we've played that little game, and also because he understands that he needs to like speak to me in a particular language, whereas with everybody else it's like another language. But anyway, so basically going back to the fact that I'm asking him to speak a particular language, I'm saying, yeah, say it in Russian. So I found it quite difficult for him to even repeat it or to say it, especially if he doesn't know the word. And I like to see him put together sentences, because sometimes he has a pause. Even in English, he's like obviously learning the language because he's a toddler, and sometimes when he doesn't know what to say, he's like and doesn't know how to proceed. So I would therefore help him out with that word. I will actually say, so in Russian it's this, in English it's this. So I've been explicit, and I also change my own like what that language I use. So like going back to the fact that I speak 2 languages, I also tell him, so in English it's cat, in на русском это кошка. So like speak in both languages in the one sentence. Me and my sister do this really well. Basically, with those things that I've mentioned, I really do believe that you can give a baseline level of a language to your children or like your family. They say that the earlier the child learns a language, the easier it is for them. Look, I am living proof that you can have both languages. Yes, there's always going to be a dominant language. However, you can give the gift of another language, which is super awesome. And with these tricks, like, I've lived and breathed these. I've taught my toddler these. If you wanted to see how we get on, do watch our vlogs to see how we actually translate on the go and speak together. Go and check out my Instagram if you wanted to see like my stories of like actual real life like children learning the language, two languages in a really dominant English environment. So I hope these are helpful. I do realise that a lot of you are actually following me for the bilingual living stuff, so if you've got any questions and you want me to do a video on anything in particular, do let me know down below and then I'll get to that straight away. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and I'll catch you guys next time. Bye.